Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Spoonful podcast. I am one of your hosts today, as always, Mario Pacquidio, and joined by my good friend, Mr. Emmett Watkins Jr. Oh, he's boxing.
Oh yeah. Just let me at him. Let me at him. I fall like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's a good time to exist in the world. Actually, maybe that's questionable, but there's good things to look forward to.
There's some good stuff coming up, I guess.
Yeah, there's one less corpse in Senate. I'll tell you that much.
Nice, hell yeah. How you been, dude? Since we last recorded, we ended last one on like a pretty heavy philosophical note. So how you been? How you
Yeah,
doing?
I'll tell you what. I haven't left Twitter yet.
Hey,
That just has not happened. And I'm actually conflicted because I remembered kind of last minute that every year for the last 2 years, I've done a thing in October where it's like a trick or treat code giveaway where I have like a giant list of Steam keys that I've either
oh
gotten
yeah.
from bundles or, already owned it or I didn't want it, blah, blah, blah. I have this giant list and I always give away a bunch of keys every October. We're recording this on October 1st, and I've not figured out if I want to continue doing that on Twitter because I use TweetDeck to do it, and now TweetDeck's a paid feature. So,
Ah.
yeah. So I'm like, should I continue doing it on Twitter and just find a different way? Or should I bounce over to the Sky of Blue and do it there with substantially less people who might see those posts? So I'm like, I don't know.
Hmm.
We'll see. But I'm gonna figure something out before the end of the day because the day's pretty open, pretty free. So we'll see. I got a couple things I need to do because Lord have mercy, October's about to be a whopper of a month. But other than that, it's all good. It's all good.
Nice. I'm happy to hear that. You got it. You'll figure it out. This is
Yeah.
that's reality on a post Elon world, I guess.
God, you're telling me. Do I want to reward people who stayed on that app with me, or do I want to say everyone get off of here and go to this place? Like I don't know. We'll find out soon
We'll
enough.
figure it out. We'll figure it out. I've been I've been busy. I was like when I sat down
Mm.
on the desk here to start our recording, I was thinking I'm pretty sure this is either the first or the second time since we did last episode that I've sat down on my desk.
Oh, you've been moving.
I've been going cuz here's my thing. Here's the thing. I've
Hmm.
it's I've learned about that it's better to not utilize the same desk or seating for like studying purposes as the place where you like chill out and play video games, right? Because your brain
Yes.
associates that place with like we're hanging out, we're vibing, we're playing some games. And so
Hmm.
you're just like more prone to get distracted. So I leave my desk for fun stuff and for Spoonful, which is fun stuff. Ah.
Hell yeah. Hell
Hell
yeah.
yeah. So
I
I
feel that.
legitimately think since last recording, I've sat down maybe one other time, which is when I played a little bit of Lies of P. Game is sick.
Mm.
Game is fucking sick.
Ah,
Game is super fucking
very
cool.
good.
Very, very good game. And that's about all the real free time I've had it, which I am like trying to game plan ahead so hard, Emmett, for Spider-Man 2. Like
Oh Lord.
I'm like, how am I gonna fit this in? But I have to fit it in. I'm like, I know it's not that long of a game, so it's more attainable than like when I set out on my Starfield journey, I never was like, I'll beat it by the end of the year. I was like, I'll probably play this until 2026. And
No.
for Spider-Man, it's beatable. It's achievable, right? I'm like, it probably
Absolutely.
have like a 20-hour story, maybe a 30-hour story, like with some sides and stuff. Like, so it's attainable.
Sure.
But I need to figure it out, dude. Because I can't. Spider-Man is one of those where I can't just like, I'll wait, I'll play it later. Because there's a ton of games right now on my backlog because I just don't have the time. And I'm like, I'll
Hmm.
Armored Core 6, I'll get around to you at some point, right? Like, I know I'll play you,
Yeah.
but not right now. I can't do that to Spider-Man 2, man.
Spider-Man 2, that thing's getting spoiled first week. First weekend, maybe. Like I'm terrified. And I'm having a similar problem with Spider-Man 2 where it's less I'm probably gonna be able to find time to play it. It's fucking me up because it comes out at the end of the month.
Mm,
And I have like Halloween plans and a music festival and possibly doing stuff with some of Gabby's mutual friends. So it's like I've made a bunch of plans, and because I've made a bunch of plans, I don't know if I'm gonna even be able to buy Spider-Man 2 when it comes out. So it's a question of like, is my money even gonna be looking right to even
Yeah.
drop $70 without
I
question?
I had to make the decision of like, okay, there's a ton of games that I want to play, but I don't have a ton of funds. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like, either I get one or two of these games that might cost a little bit less, or I just pony up for Spider Man. I was gonna pay for Spider Man this paycheck. But I figured I got paid next paycheck, and it's still before it comes out. I'm like, okay, next paycheck, I can definitely do it. It won't hurt me,
Yep.
and that's my budget for the year. Like I'm
Yep.
done. Like Mario Wonder, I'm like, you look great. I will.
Oh, I was never touching Mario Wonder, if I'm being honest with myself.
I probably am, but it's like one of those where basically since I've had my Switch, the console where that happens to me the most, where like a game that I really want to play comes out, but I'm like, I can't afford it right now. I'll play it at some point. My Nintendo backlog is gigantic, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Absolutely.
like there's a few games, especially last year. I was able to catch up on like the biggest ones that I wanted to play. Like I played Link's Awakening remake. That was sick. Loved that game. I played Super Mario 3D World for the first time, which that game's
Oh
incredible.
wow. Okay.
That
I
game is
respect that.
so good. Um,
Hmm.
and then there's other than that, there's like a whole bunch of Nintendo games that I'm like, I want to play that. Like I haven't played a Pokemon game since Diamond and Pearl.
Wow. Jesus. You're better than me at least. I've never played a Pokemon game. It's never interested me. But I do also relate with the whole massive Switch backlog. I have barely played any games on Switch. I think I played like Bayonetta 2 and 3, and then after that it's like what else have I played on Switch? I played a 20 hours into Tears of the King, or 30 hours into Tears of the Kingdom, 20 hours into Breath of the Wild, and I still Metroid Prime Remastered. I have been dying to play that, so I still haven't made time for that.
Yep.
So we'll see if I can get around to it. I got that Bayonetta Origins
Oh
game,
yeah,
the
that
like
weird
top down
like
one.
coloring book, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I
People love
bought
that
that a
game.
while ago. Yeah, people really talk it up, but also I only hear like a handful of people talk about it at all. So it's
Mm,
like, is no one talking about it because there's other games that need to be played, or is it actually maybe not as good as the four people who've played it say? But I'll find that out soon enough. And then of course, just a million other. I haven't played a single Mario game. I think I've played a little bit of Odyssey, but like I haven't beaten it. Blah blah
Odyssey's
blah.
so good. I tried for that's me with a replay of Odyssey. Or like two things about
Mm,
Odyssey. Like I beat that and I was like, I'm gonna get every moon. And that just never happened. And I still have it
hmm
installed on my Switch because like I'm like delusional. I'm like, yeah, I'll pick it up at some point and I'll get all the moons. And I haven't touched that game in like 3 years. I'm like, I'll pick it up for sure. And then the one that makes me the saddest of like those games that are just like, especially once you like get them, and I bought this game and I have this game and I haven't even opened it up one time, and I'm like, oh, dude, is
Oh no.
Rogue Legacy 2 on my Steam Deck.
Oh wow,
Dude,
Jesus
like
Christ!
that game, I was like, fuck yeah,
Ugh.
it's out. I love the first Rogue Legacy. I dropped so many hours on the Vita, and now I have the Steam Deck, and it's the same thing. It's on the go. I love this. I can't wait.
Mm-mm.
I haven't opened it one time, Emmett, and I'm like, dude, it just sucks.
Ugh. Well, I'll tell you what. When it comes to the indies and stuff, I've been playing a good chunk of indies lately. I'm just right now. Sometime in September, I was like, look, I need to play some games that came out this year. If I'm supposed to be writing for a website and being on podcast stuff and all that, I have to have
Hmm.
some opinion on something that came out recently. So I've been getting through some stuff. I'm about to finish the Dead Space remake, and I'm
Nice.
halfway through. I'm halfway through RE4 remake.
Mm.
So, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. But yeah, Spider Man might be the one October game I touch. And then anything else for the whole rest of the year is hope it comes to PlayStation Plus or Game Pass because I need to be relaxing. Come November, I need to be like, hey, what am I buying for Christmas for people?
Yeah.
And, that conversation needs to be had. And then, of course, it's my birthday season and all that stuff. I got so much to figure out. So, but yeah, video games are cool. It's just if only we had the time and money to enjoy them.
God, dude, like I knew already from the go, right? From the moment that I was like, I'm gonna go to school, that like obviously not gonna have as much time. with this semester how busy it's been, I'm like, I've played 6 hours of video games in the last few like months.
Yeah.
Fucking
I
shit.
am Hey, I got my acceptance for the spring semester for my school.
Hey.
And yeah, thank you, thank you. I'm about to await the same fate.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a blast. It's a blast.
So yeah, looking forward to that. Great googly moogly.
I mean,
I said Google and now my thing turned on. Oh no,
that
hopefully it doesn't talk. You know what? No, I'm just hitting the button. All right, we're good.
is gonna give you
Anyway,
the definition of a moogly. It's like a moogly
exactly.
is a fucking I don't know, whatever.
It's an Indonesian shrimp dish. I don't know.
Nice. Nice.
I will say though, the main thing that has kept me away from video games in the last couple months is what our top is going to be, because I have been doing that more than playing games often.
It's fantastic. I love both of our podcaster brains because I was like, okay, I'm about to work in a segue. Look at this guy,
Yeah,
one step ahead.
yeah,
What a dude. What a guy.
yeah. Yin and yang. That's what's up.
Best in the biz, man. He's been doing it for a bit. So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
listen. In the same way, I equate. Let me see if this makes sense to you. In the same way that Paris Lilly, for a while,
Mm,
right? Like, was like the cyberpunk guy, right? Like, that's at the very least, that's how I came to know him, right?
fair.
He was a guy who loved cyberpunk and did all the deep dives and was ready for the game to come out. And obviously, Paris is great, right? He's all over the gaming world, right? Like, he's cool, he's great.
For
But
sure.
for a while, he was the cyberpunk guy. I think for me, if I if I didn't know you as closely as I do you, right? Like and we play
Mm.
Apex, we played Apex together and we have a podcast and we're like friends. If we weren't friends, I would see you as, oh yeah, that guy who loves video essays.
Ah, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to hold that,
Yeah,
hold that
that's you,
title.
man. Like you got that locked down.
Mm,
I'm the Taylor
yeah,
Swift
video
guy,
essays.
you're the essay guy, like for sure.
Boy, howdy. The thing is, I don't know how long I've been consuming video essays to the point where it's like a core part of my personality. Because it hasn't been forever. But I also don't know when it started.
It
Well,
just did. Chicken and the
yeah,
egg.
because I do feel like, I've been watching YouTube forever. Like that's just since like mid high school, late high school. I YouTube is like before I pull up a Netflix, before I pull up a
Same.
any streaming service or TV or even I'm on YouTube and I'm seeing what's there to watch. So, it started before I started watching video essay content. It was just, doing your normal stuff. SourceFed was a thing. So I was like, oh, let me watch these what is it? They Table Talk. Oh, Table Talk episodes on SourceFed with the shit.
Those were
Um,
the days, man.
exactly. And watching videos like that where it's just a bunch of people palling around, cracking jokes, whatnot, that's like a 30-minute video. So that was already training my brain to be like, all right, YouTube is a place for short form content, music videos, or a quick 5-minute let's play or whatever. Now there's 10-minute let's plays. Now there's table talks that are half an hour, sometimes 45 minutes. So, I'm slowly
Mm-hmm.
getting to that point. And, already been listening to podcasts, and those are like an hour every single time. And so at some point, I don't know what the first video essay thing that I've watched or seen, but at some point, I want to say the first one I watched regularly was uh Jacob Geller, maybe. Um I remember his videos being some of the first videos where I found him and I was like, oh shit, I found his channel and I was like, I'm watching every video you've ever put out.
Yeah, one of those.
Those are
Been
my
there.
plans today. Yeah. And then from there, I think what really started it being a core part of my personality is Noah Caldwell Gervais. Um, and we've talked about him on the previous episode, but like his stuff is it's it's the perfect mix of he's very he sounds very scholarly when he's like writing his stuff. He's just a
Mm,
good writer. He just comes off as like having a lot of experience in the things in which he's talking about, which is media consumption and other forms of media to compare games to. So his writing is incredible. He has the voice of like a 1932 like radio broadcaster, and it's very soothing, and it also just clashes a lot with the stuff he's talking about because he'll
mm,
sound like that and he's talking about like Dead Space 3.
amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I
and the
I
final thing
keep
is
meaning
just
to want to
yeah, go ahead.
watch his some of his FromSoft stuff because I know he has a bunch of FromSoft essays, and it's one of those where I for sure want to get around to it because from software games you could go on and on and on and on and on about those. So I'm excited to see just another kind of video essay. I'll let you finish and then I'll piggyback off of the From Software stuff.
Yeah, I'll just say his From Software stuff is really good, but I will just say the last thing is he talks about all types of games, which is to say that not only does he talk about the classics like FromSoft, and he's made two videos on FromSoft. He's made
Mhm.
one where it's all the Souls games, and then another one where it's all of the side games, so Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring.
Right.
Um, so like he'll talk about the classics. He has videos on a lot of stuff, but he also, because he like very clearly cares about every single game he plays, he has such a deep insight. I don't know if insight's the right word, but like he'll look at games that no one else cares about in like a completionist aspect. Like he played Ghost Recon Wildlands, and people like Wildlands. No one talks about the DLC. So he put out like an hour and 20-minute video. The first 40 minutes or so is the game itself, and then he played all of the DLC, which just fell down in quality. But he played all of it. And he did the same thing for Watch Dogs Legion. He did the same thing for Homefront: The Revolution.
I
He
can't
did the
wait.
same thing for a lot of these games. He played the DLC for Red Faction Armageddon, a
Sick.
game barely anyone played. So like he does that. He'll look at a whole franchise and he doesn't skimp on it. At the beginning of his channel, he might have been like, "Oh, well, people don't care about this game. Let me skip that." But nowadays, he is so completionist. He has an 8-hour Resident Evil video where
Insane.
almost he played almost every Resident Evil video, but the ones that he did pick, it's like you didn't have to play Code Veronica. You didn't have to go in there and play Dead Aim, the PS1 light gun game that didn't have a light gun because it came out right after Columbine. You didn't have to do you didn't have to do any of this, but he goes in a way that I really appreciate, and it's just really cool having someone, because I'm one of the weird freaks who likes these weird obscure less thought about, less talked about games. To have someone with his caliber of writing and his caliber of being able to look at something and find its value or find its flaws, to have him be looking at that type of stuff, it's like, man, that was a revolution. So yeah,
Yeah.
his stuff pretty much as soon as it comes out, that's what I'm doing that whole day.
No, like and that's totally fair. Like I love having creators like that, right? And I've recently gotten slightly more into like longer form content. I mentioned it on the show, but I've always been a Linus Tech Tips watcher for like forever,
Mm,
right? And I used to listen
good
to their
stuff.
podcast that back in the day was like an hour long, right? A normal podcast about tech news and stuff. And the podcast has evolved to be like on average 4 hours long. Like it's like four or five.
Goodness.
We there was one a couple like maybe a month ago or so that was like 5 and change hours. And I used to see that, I'd be like, "I'll never listen to that. That's, like, way too long," right? But now I'm like, every week, every Friday, I'm like, "Let's go. Let's do it. 5 hours. Spend the
Hmm.
whole weekend listening to it." But I've gotten around to more long form content, and no Called Rage Gervais, I wanna get around to his FromSoft stuff, and then that one video essay, I forget who it's from, you mentioned it on the channel before. I think for the Spoonies. That video essay about that
Ooh.
weird Japanese game that's, like, about being back home or something like that. I remember you.
Oh, Boku no Natsume.
Yes,
Yeah, Boku no Natsume 3. That's a action button. Tim Rogers used to be at
Tim
Kotaku.
Rogers. Yep, there it
Um,
is.
Tim Rogers, he's a really good writer, but the thing that makes him interesting, Botsu no Natsume 3, or no, I think it's the original Boku no Natsume. Um, that's the game he talks about. It's a PlayStation 1 game. It is about being a child, it is about like nostalgic memories as a child walking around the Japanese countryside and such. And because it's a game about memory, Tim Rogers has a special condition. I don't know what's the proper term to call it, but I'm gonna just say condition, where he has a frighteningly good memory.
Mhm.
And the thing about it is, it's really cool to be like, oh, I remember the exact house, the exact street that I grew up in as a kid, and like remembers everyone's names and remembers like actions that happen at certain locations. He remembers everything like it happened yesterday. But the entire video kind of turns into a meditation on like how it feels when you can remember everything perfectly clear, because that means all your good memories are easily recallable, all your bad memories are easily
Yeah.
recallable.
It sounds
And
fucking awesome. Like it sounds so
yeah,
fascinating. That's why I really want to watch it.
yeah, it's super fascinating. It is one of the only video essays I've cried at. And yes, people are gonna see the runtime. Similar to your Linus Tech Tips, it's like, oh, 5 hour podcast. That video is like 9 hours.
I know.
Almost. It's absurd, but like I got to the end of it and I'm like, holy shit. I watched it in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep one night and I just watched it until it was like 9 a.m.
You're like,
It was
oh,
really
fuck.
it was really good. It was
Yeah.
worth it. And then I just slept all the next day, but it was
Yeah.
very much so worth it.
No, that's one of your like freak ones that I want to watch, right? Like, cause
Mhm.
that's like a total freak show, like fucking 9 hour long video essay. But I will say I've gotten like I was saying I've gotten more into long form content. I want to shout out Vati Vidya, who's the guy who does all the FromSoft stuff. Like he does the best FromSoft lore sort of videos, right? Like he's the
Ah,
guy. But he has a few different categories of videos, I guess we'll say, right? Like he has the like 15 cool things I found in Elden Ring, right? And it's like 15 little secrets and they're all based on the lore and like all little details, but they're a bit more casual in the way that they're presented. Um but he's dropped two videos recently that have been the longest. I believe the longest videos on the channel is definitely up there. Um,
oh
and they're
boy.
both sort of their own video essays in their own right. And I enjoyed them so much. I've been watching Vati since I got into FromSoft, right? Like, as soon as I finish a FromSoft game, I'm like, I can't wait to devour all of the content that Vati has on this video, right? But
Yep.
normally he's got like, the videos are like 25 minutes, 30 minutes or so, and they're very lore heavy. He has the biggest series on the channel is called Prepare to Cry. And what he does, because
Mm.
From Software videos tell narratives, but in a very non traditional way, right? Like you have to keep an eye on the lore from every item you pick up. They give you like very very invaluable stuff, and not to the level that like a Naughty Dog game will, right? Where like you'll pick up notes and it'll be
Mhm.
like, oh, this happened. It's like way more obtuse than that, way more obscured than
Mm.
that. But if you put in the effort to like learn what they're telling you about, you get a lot out of it. And it's the same thing with NPCs, right? Like you'll meet an NPC and you can start off a quest line, but they're very convoluted for you to finish those quest lines. There's not like there's a mini map and then there's like a little, oh, this guy has a mission for you. You just have to understand what they're doing in the world and talk to them and go finding them in the location that they should be, and like you do this and then this person moves over here and then when they move over here you need to grab this one little nut all the way in the other map and you got to give him the nut.
Mm.
And those stories tend to be very dark in one way or another, right? Like they're always fucked up in some way
Yep.
because that's what FromSoft is all about. So he has a series called Prepare to Cry, where essentially what it is he tells a narrative of a quest line, right? Like he'll narrate. He has a very soothing, very nice voice. So he'll narrate and tell you kind of like the little story about this one character. And for Elden Ring, he's been doing these since Elden Ring came out. They have been essentially done one major Prepare to Cry video per like ending, because each ending is
Mm.
tied to a different quest line. But what they've done, because Vati works on it with some other people, is they've turned up the cinematic level of the presentation, where it's not just him narrating anymore. They set up camera angles in a way that it looks cinematic and it looks almost like a
Ah,
cutscene. And they'll pull dialogue from the game, and each one has like like a different vibe. The second to last one was about one of the last ones. There's the bad ending in the game where like you
that's like
interact
Age of
with,
Chaos, right?
yeah, you interact with the Flame of Frenzy, and the Flame of Frenzy is essentially a bad guy. And they made that video be like a like a little short horror film
Mm.
sort of thing. Like it has like jump
Wow.
scares and shit. And then their last video has been about the most popular quest line, Ronnie's quest line. And they call it an Elden Ring movie, The Age of the Stars, and it's an hour and 3 minutes.
That's That's impressive. Well, considering the times we've been talking about on here, not the craziest thing in the world, but like considering what you're talking about, it's like, how is that just a way more deep and intricate storyline?
It's
Like, what
very
makes it next
yes.
hour?
It's very deep. It's very intricate. It's there's a lot of stuff going on. Elden Ring's a huge game, so they've it. Yes, he does narrate, but they created like custom animations for it for the intro and for the
Mm.
outro. They again they I forget who Vati works with, but he works with somebody who essentially was able to fuck around in the Elden Ring engine to like create cool camera angles for combat. And the thing that blew my mind is they're having a section of combat, and this is just capture of combat in Elden Ring, and the way that it's edited around, I was like into it, as if
Huh.
I was
Like
watching a
more
movie
engrossed.
with like, because there's one particular moment that's a very like a poignant fight, like you're fighting somebody who's been an ally for a long time, and in the
Mm.
game you have to kill them, and it's like, damn, that sucks. But the way that they shot it
Mm.
hits, man. It was incredible. It was a masterpiece. Like it was fucking
Wow.
incredible.
Okay. Use the M word. All right. It's in to watch later.
Dude, it was yeah, it was really, 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 really great. Like just fascinating. And then the other one that he did recently, leading up to the release of Armored Core 6, he played all 15 Armored Core games and just
Mm.
shared his experience, right? And it's an hour 33-minute long video. Um and it's awesome because it's very different to what he normally does, but it's super interesting. As somebody who never played an Armored Core game, I was laser focused on that.
There are 15 Armored Core games or 16
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
What the
dude.
hell?
Yeah. That's
Armored
one.
Core 6 just came out.
That was the first thing that I was like, what do you mean 15 Armored Core games?
Good lord. There must have been one on the N gauge or something, because how do you get to that number?
It's so basically Armored Core 1 and 2 have like three different like follow-up games that, but they're still just Armored Core 1 follow-ups and Armored Core 2 follow-ups, and 3 has like four follow-ups and 4 has three follow-ups, and
Good lord.
it's it goes crazy. But yeah,
Ubisoft's
those
crazy.
are two that I like obsessed over recently because they're really good.
Yeah, those are really good. And that does bring me to another question here, because I'm gonna watch these. I've heard this name before,
He's great.
but yeah, a lot of people like him, and a lot of people are FromSoft fans, so I'm gonna hear his name, of course. But there's some people, like some channels will just put out a video essay and it's just the new thing they're talking about, and there's no like connectivity between things and blah blah blah. There's some video essays, and I appreciate this in some channels, and I'll list a couple examples that are like a series of things where it's
Mm,
like, it's not just this topic is being talked about and we'll stay here for a couple hours and talk about it. It is, hey, everything's in this one topic and we'll keep digging in on this. And two of my favorite series like that are from a channel called Innuendo Studios. Um, they are really good, and I'm gonna look it up so I don't get the name wrong. Innuendo Studios, yes. Innuendo Studios, they haven't put out a million videos lately. They're like a moderately sized channel. We're talking about like Vidya. He has like 2 million subscribers. He's a massive channel and
oh
all
yeah.
that stuff. Um, and even some of the channels we've been talking about, like Jacob Geller, one of the first people I found, he's at 1 million subs finally. He's deserved it for a long time. And Innuendo is probably in the same range as No Call Will Gervais when it comes to like how many subscribers they have. They're in the hundreds of thousands. But the thing that I like Innuendo Studios for most is three different series that they've done. One is barely a series. The other two are like actually a series. The one that's barely a series, when COVID happened, he just made a bunch of very quick and dirty videos because his mind space to make a complete full thesis and everything was not there because it was COVID. So I don't blame him.
Yeah.
And then he also donated all of the proceeds from those videos to all the Black Lives Matter stuff that was going on at the time. And so, yeah, it was very good. He has another series that doesn't get talked about often. A series by the name of Bringing Back What's Stolen. and it is basically just breaking down the tropes and the ways in which Mad Max Fury Road breaks down those tropes.
Oh,
And
love that.
yeah, I love it too. And what's really good about the series, every video, the longest video in the series is 11 minutes. So if you watch the whole playlist back to back to back to back, it feels like a proper, chunky video essay, but it's broken up to where no one's going to be driven away by any specific
It's more
video.
digestible.
Exactly, exactly. So that's a good one for people to watch from Innuendo Studios. But the thing that I think people know Innuendo Studios for most, because he makes a lot of series, he makes a lot of videos about, random games. He has a whole series about like adventure games and the design of them over the years. He has a great video about Life is Strange and The Walking Dead season 2 and all that stuff. The one that he's most known for is the alt-right playbook, which is literally just explaining here's all the things that the right does to facilitate their fan base. Here's all the tricks they use. He talks about things in here because he has several videos in here. It's 20 videos total right now.
Wow. Nice.
And yeah, it's just talking about how they mainstream certain, problematic lines of thought. The whole idea of like there's always a bigger fish, so people always want to be, they want to be the boot, so they worship the boot until it's on their foot. That type of thing. And how to radicalize a normie is probably his most, I'm not going to say infamous video, but it is the one where it's like, it's the longest video in the whole series. And it's basically talking about how if you're just some normal dude on the internet, here's how people radicalize you. And here's how you can end up in a group, in a mindset of something that is horrible. And it goes into detail, not into like, oh shit, people are going to follow these steps detail, but it's like very eye opening if it's your first time watching it to be like, holy shit, that's how quick it can happen. And then what's probably my favorite one is just the you go high, we go low, where, during the Obama era, the whole idea of like, well, they're not going to play by the rules, so we're just going to play by the rules and, go around them instead of, do anything about them not breaking the rules. And, just things that didn't get passed during that era because they're like, well, we need votes from both sides. When really, as president, you could have swapped the rules around. And if they're not going to play ball, you could have changed it to where you could have pushed things through that could have made things better.
Oh, yeah.
And, then things changed in 2016. So, it's
Fire
things like
Nation
that.
attack.
Exactly. And they've been attacking ever since. So yeah, I think that series is really good. Are there any? Yeah, because we already talked about Prepare to Cry. Are there any other like video essay series that you're like, oh shit, that's really good?
So here's I'm very interested in that. I'm definitely gonna check that out. This one is it's interesting because I have two trains of thoughts with this. One, it's not necessarily video essays per se, but it's in a similar vein, especially when you consider the subject matter. And it's something I've just like really have gotten into that I've dove in super deep, and it makes sense like where I'm at in life and what I'm doing on my day-to-day life. But I have become like very, very into like educational YouTube, right? Like educational YouTube videos.
Yes.
Because dude, there's some obviously like Veritasium, right? Like everybody knows Veritasium, like GOAT legend in the game. Maybe you don't, but legend in the game in the world of education and educational YouTube, like he's up there, right? He's one of the goats. Same with like Vsauce.
Okay.
You
Yeah, I'm
probably
aware of
heard it,
Vsauce.
right?
Yeah.
Vsauce, Veritasium, like those are like up there, right? Like goats. They bring up some great stuff and they make very entertaining videos, extremely high quality. Some of them are like video essay level. Like I watched a video last night that was like 40 to 50 minutes that was all about how there's like a branch of math that all that they study is knots and just does
What?
like a knot, like tying a knot.
Like actual? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and this is like a
Huh.
40 something minute video just diving into the crazy rabbit hole since like the 1800s relating to studying knots and how it's actually incredibly important Like it started off as like a little hobby for mathematicians way back when of like, oh, this is interesting. And now it's like people are like creating molecules based on knot theories.
Oh, good lord.
It's nuts. It's like fucking crazy.
Fuck. I didn't know we could make molecules. I didn't know they patched that in the next
Yeah,
notes.
essentially they grab an ion and they using knots they will rearrange the ions so that the molecule now has different qualities. Like they turned one
Wow.
molecule into a different type of molecule. It's fucking crazy.
That's very fucking
And that's all
crazy.
because of the insane number of knots, right? Like there's something like 357 billion possible knots.
Mm, I did not see that coming.
It's a crazy rabbit hole, and I've been just enjoying falling down crazy rabbit holes like that.
Mhm.
There's another creator called Steve Mold, who's
Mm.
fantastic. He does a lot of sort of science like explainers and explaining how stuff works. He's most famous for doing like transparent versions of things to show how certain mechanisms works. He cut the first video I found of him is he cut a gas pump in half to figure out
Oh.
how it works, like how it knows to stop pumping once it's full, and it's just videos of that nature, right? But they're like extremely fascinating to me recently, and that's the
Hmm.
biggest thing that I've fallen down. Like I'll watch a 52-minute video about imaginary numbers, and it's
Mm.
and it's fascinating to me right now. Like I'm just that's such my jam right now because I'm learning so much in general that there's a lot of really great, really entertaining educational content out there.
Mm. Mm. I respect that. I respect that. I think that kind of taps into, because I'll be honest, when it comes to educational stuff, this is the type of stuff that when I was younger, I'd be watching Mythbusters and Dirty Jobs for things like this because, it's curiosity about the world and how things work. I think
Totally.
that's really cool. But what I feel like this taps into now that relates to, both of our interests, it's about uncovering what's already been there. It's about trying to figure out how things work. In this context, it's like, let's figure out how the mechanics of this work, how this thing in science works, how this, how this object does what it's supposed to do. That's fascinating. And honestly, I
Yeah,
find that
it's
a little
super
bit
cool.
fascinating myself. It's the type of thing where I don't know if I'd sit and watch a 10-minute video about it, but when there's a TikTok on it, I'm not going to swipe off of it.
Mm,
That type of thing.
yeah,
But it ties into the same thing because I'm really looking for the same thing. Where instead of it being how does this work, it's how did they accomplish these emotions in this movie? How did they make this game feel good? How did they, make this piece of art do what it does? How does this political system work and how does it output the results that it's outputting? Things like that. Things that are more immaterial. Like I like videos, or I just like thinking about things that you can't really put your hands on. They're
totally.
all things that exist in the mind. And everyone's mind is different, so they all think it's something different, which is fun to like. It's the friction of like trying to figure out what that is for everyone. I really enjoy that friction and it coming about. But yeah, this is actually pretty interesting. Oh, and there's a bunch of TikToks of it too. So
Oh yeah,
or
like they
shorts.
all yeah, like Vsauce. Vsauce is one of those where if you've been a fan of Vsauce, like the time in between videos has gotten like longer and longer and longer. Like it used to be like a video a month, and it's like a video every couple months, video every 3 months. Now it's
Mhm.
like it's been a year and a half, and then randomly a video will come out. It's like, oh shit, Vsauce video, y'all. But I found out on Shorts because I don't have TikTok, but on YouTube the Shorts,
Mhm.
there's a ton of like little tiny snippets of like cool like little info. But like for Steve Mold, I pulled up the app. This right
Ah,
here
yep.
is the most their most popular his most popular video. It's about the Assassin's Teapot. So he loves doing shit like this where like he'll grab
What?
like a weird object and be like, this thing's kind of weird, and he just figures out how it works, right? And so
Huh.
this one, the Assassin's Teapot, is like from one teapot you can pour three different liquids,
So you pour it and it kind of like mixes the poison in.
Right. So exactly. So it's called the Assassin's Teapot
Huh.
because you can pour yourself a drink and pour somebody else a drink, but unbeknownst to them, theirs is poisoned and yours isn't, and you drink it to prove that it's not poison, and then you kill them. And it's like a real thing that people used to like do, right? So he figures out how the hell it works, and there's just a bunch of interesting stuff like that. That is just
Ooh.
like a cool rabbit hole to go down, right? And just like, I didn't know that before. And
Mm.
so, but for videos like that, Steve Mold in particular, he doesn't tend to drop big old like hour and a half videos, right? Like they're usually like shorter, like a 14-minute video here and there, maybe a 20 something minute video here and there. It's nothing insane. And this brings me to a larger question that I had when we started the topic, that for Steve Mold, it makes sense, right? Like he drops videos fairly often. Like I understand how that's a career. For somebody like, say, H Bomber guy, right?
Oh
A
yeah.
fairly prolific video essayist, right? Like a big name out there, right?
One of the
Videos,
goats is fair.
yeah, one of the goats. Videos get tons of views. They're incredible, super well produced. They're awesome, right? How how does he how does that become
Make
a
a living.
career? How does he make a living? And
Mm.
I'm not trying to like crack on him or anything. Like it's a genuine question. Understanding how video content monetization works, like to a small degree, like understanding the mechanisms behind it. I'm like, he'll release a video like once a year, once and a half a year, maybe
He'll maybe release 2.5 videos a year.
two and a half.
That's
Sure.
been the cadence.
So
Yeah. Um, but how is
how
that feasible?
exactly? Like, and I get it. Like, he gets tons of views on his videos for sure. But how do like what, you know what I mean? And I find the same thing for a lot of video essayists, and it makes more sense for the smaller creators, right? Because the smaller creators, it's almost more of a passion project, and I'm sure they make money from it, right? And I'm sure it's a source of income, but I don't think it's the sole source of income for the smaller creators, right? But
Indeed.
creators like H Bomber guy, I'm like, does he have a day job? I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And here's where I think it comes into play. Um, First off, the main thing that's probably the actual just answer flat out to your question, Patreon is holding these guys
Yeah,
up
that's what I
super
was
heavy.
guessing. A
Yeah,
lot of
Patreon is like the
educational,
main pillar.
actually, a lot of educational videos are the same thing because they can take a long time for producing something because you have to do so much research and you have to like get experts on the matter. And oftentimes, even a big creator like Veritasium, like he has a Patreon. And Vsauce, the reason why Vsauce can wait a year till he drops is because he started his own company. He has something called Curiosity Box, for those who aren't familiar, where it's like a monthly subscription box sort of thing, where you get like a bunch of either like little science projects or like just cool weird items that do something in an interesting way, and that makes sense, right? Like, okay, that's your main source of income, and the videos supplement that, right? Like the videos are the way that you bring more people into Curiosity Box, and that's cool. And
Mhm.
Veritasium, and I'm sorry, I know you were going to continue, sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, please no.
Veritasium,
Go
for
ahead. Go
example,
ahead.
sells, and it's something I want to buy because I think it's really fucking cool. He sells a like a kit of atoms and molecules that are magnetic. Like
Hmm.
we've all used the ones where like you have to like screw in like a different atom or whatever to
Yeah.
build like a molecule, and it like takes forever. He built these really cool magnetic ones so that you can just grab like a hydrogen atom and plug in two oxygens, and you have a fucking I'm sorry.
A
Well,
molecule.
you have a molecule, right? I mixed
Bingo.
up the formula for water. My bad there. But it's really cool, right? And
Fine.
and and
I wouldn't have
it's
caught it.
I had to catch myself. So those kind of make sense, but like somebody like H Bomber guy, I guess yeah, like Patreon is the way, right?
Mhm. Yeah, Patreon is the wave. A lot of people, because I follow some folks on Patreon, and it's so not funny, but like for example, what is her name? God, ContraPoints. ContraPoints, one of the video essay goats. All her stuff is great. Well, very highly produced as well. She has only put out one video in like the last year and a half. And I was like, huh, I wonder what's going on. So at some point I subscribed to her Patreon because, I want to support. She has been putting out like Patreon exclusive, like side video essays for months. She just put one out about Gamergate, and these are on YouTube. They're what is it? They're unlisted, so only people with the link from Patreon are gonna see it. But like that's what we're dealing with here. And it's like, oh my God, it is people are just you can just make stuff for just your community and go about it.
Totally.
But then also YouTube is very much so like watch time is the biggest stat that they care about. You can get 1 million views and everything, but if they're only watching the first 2 minutes, it's not really gonna make a difference in your bank.
Yeah, I know that.
Exactly. But for people who watch video essays and people who like video essay content, you're coming here and you're watching the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's 9 hours, but give me a couple days, we'll watch all those 9 hours.
And especially if you're a YouTube Premium member,
oh yeah, no ads or anything.
And you give them a full watch on like a very, very, very large form content. That's huge for creators. That's like
absolutely
huge for them. So yeah, no, you're right about that. But I've always just found the mechanics of that interesting.
Ooh. I'll say one other thing that I've seen a lot of creators get onto more and more as we keep going. There's this other website called Nebula. You've probably seen people.
Yeah.
You've probably seen at the end of some video essays, they'll be like, hey, my sponsor for this video is Curiosity Stream.
Yes.
And then, or they'll be like, the sponsor for this video is Nebula.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Uh-oh, you're breaking up a little bit, so I'm not quite sure. Let me pause for a second.
I was just saying, continue. You can go ahead.
Okay. I have no clue what you said in the middle there, but now that I hear you again, yeah. Long story short, Curiosity Stream and Nebula are more or less one and the same. Curiosity Stream is just Netflix for documentaries, but then attached to that subscription is Nebula, and Nebula is literally just video essay or informative type of content, but ad free and no algorithm involved. So it's literally just, hey, do you like FD Signifier? Well, you can watch all his videos here, ad free, and typically before they come out on YouTube.
Yeah.
And it's also a case where if you want to use special music, if you want to use like, something that you think is going to get copyrighted or kicked off of YouTube or it's too much for YouTube, maybe the Nebula cut is always going to keep that stuff in because it's their own website. They host it. They don't have to worry about, advertisers and record companies trying to claim the music and all that stuff. It is a really good place. They keep adding more and more people there I don't know. It feels like every month there's more people there. They have exclusive podcasts as well. There's this podcast called Something Rotten that I love. It's good.
Totally. No, Nebula's cool. And the thing that's awesome about Nebula compared to something like a Patreon, right? Or a different kind of crowdfunded things is that their business model is one that if I explain it to you sounds like a scam and it sounds like it wouldn't work, but it works. Like it works very well for the creators. For those who don't know, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing some stuff here and there, I'm probably not getting exactly everything right, but essentially creators who join Nebula own part of Nebula, right? So it's in the interest of everybody who is in Nebula to ensure that Nebula is doing good because they're all sharing the wealth of Nebula, right? So it sounds like a pyramid scheme. Like when you hear that, you're like, oof, all right, sure, and like, okay, you gotta
like socialism, which makes sense.
Yeah, it is. That's the thing that's cool. It's like socialism, and it works. Like the creators, obviously, it won't work for everybody, but for the creators that it does work, it's great. It's fantastic. It's super. It's rock solid, which is a thing that you wouldn't think so in like the internet, and monetizing the internet is such a tricky thing, but it works, dude. And it's awesome. Like for the people that it works. And yeah, Nebula is a very cool sort of alternative way of making a living online, right?
Yeah. And it's one of those things where if you hate the whole hustle and bustle of like going viral on YouTube, looking at the comments, all that stuff, like someone like Lindsay Ellis, she left the internet entirely. She had been one of the original video essay people. She left the internet entirely. She couldn't She didn't want all the smoke of being on Twitter and dealing with discourse and whatnot. But now she's back on Nebula exclusively.
Cool.
She's put out like 4 videos this year already. And it's like, God, we've missed her voice. So it's really nice to be like, you know what, Lindsay? Tell me why E.T. is a movie more people should talk about.
Oh
Like, it's
yeah.
really good. So yeah, those are the main ways that people are making a living off this stuff. It's Patreon, it's inflated watch time because they make long videos, and also, things like Nebula, where, they're literally made for creators.
Yeah, it's funny. It reminds me of. I mean, obviously, it's funny that we've gone this long and like we haven't mentioned like kind of funny yet, right? Because like
True.
kind of funny is like the original Patreon, right? Like legitimately, it's funny how big Patreon is and how ubiquitous is when you like look back at the story of it. And kind of funny is like legitimately like very important in Patreon's history. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, like that's their whole thing, right? Like they have a big ass studio, and I'm not dissing, but like you look at the YouTube views, and it doesn't add up, right? You're like, how the hell with these views are they like being able to afford all this, and they have a cool ass studio and a cool ass company? It's because it's Patreon, right? It and it does make sense, and that reminds me of a creator that I've never like. I don't think I've ever publicly talked about, and it's been a creator that I've followed
Mm.
for years at this point, and I don't know how like if people know about them like I do. Like
Mm.
it's a fairly big channel, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. It's of course I'm blanking on the name right now. This is what
Oh
happens
boy.
when this is what
Please
happens.
don't be like, it's Andrew Tate. Fuck.
I love. So there's this
We got
podcast
so
called the
far.
Joe Rogan Show. It's really great.
No. No. Oh no. Well, now we start our Manosphere era.
Okay,
Good
so
lord.
it's fun with Guru. It's a fairly big channel, 130,000, and like their whole thing is, and they have like some very viral videos. Is they talk about Easter eggs in video games, right? Like a new
Yeah.
video game comes out and just breaks down like here are my favorite Easter eggs from this game. Here's my favorite Easter eggs from the year, and that's basically the whole thing. And I've been watching every single video this channel has put out for a really really like years,
Hmm.
like many many many
Yeah.
many years, because I just kind of love that content. And sure enough, he has a Patreon that
Yep.
like keeps him going.
And I'm very familiar with him. I've seen a handful of his videos.
Yeah, they're really well made. They're like great videos, and he's adorable because for years there's no like spoken
Voiceover or
dialogue.
anything.
There's no voiceover. It was always just like title. This is a game. This is what the Easter egg is, and then it shows the Easter egg, and it moves on. And it worked really well in the early days of like creepy Easter eggs, because like you can make that like feel a little creepy or whatever. But
Yeah, yeah.
I remember the first video where there was voiceover, and Guru was like, "Yeah, I'm really nervous. I don't really like doing this kind of stuff, but I kind of had to get on here and explain this one a little bit." And now he does a lot more voiceover content, and he's overall really cool. And I think like I don't know why I've never talked about him, because like it's been one of the content creators that I've watched the most consistently for a really long time. I'm like, yeah, I kind of
Mhm.
never gave it too much thought, so I wanted to
It's
shout him
it's
out.
one of those it's one of those things where it's hard to talk about because this type of content, because I like content like this too. This isn't what I'm about to say might come off as like a diss, but I do not mean it as much. But it's like, all right, I sat here for 9 minutes or so, saw all these cool Easter eggs in Grand Theft Auto 4 or whatever, and then there's not much of a conversation to be had
No,
about
not really. It's just
it.
I think I enjoy it just because like it gives like a tiny little peek at the window of like just like devs having fun, right? Like because
Yeah.
that's all Easter eggs are. Like these devs who are killing themselves over a game is like, let's put in a little silly joke or a little silly
Mhm.
reference to Skyrim or something. Like it just happens all the time, and it's fun.
Yeah, it's very fun, and that's why I enjoy videos like this. It's cool. What is it? Sports Story when that first came out. Oh wait,
It was on, now it's off.
All right, good. Okay. All right. Because for a second, because I had turned it off because something had happened in the
He's
background.
like,
So I
"Oh
was
no,
like,
Emma,
well,
I
let
haven't
me.
heard you the whole show. I've just been reading your lips the whole time."
Oh Lord, that's not going to be great for podcast listeners. Um, but yeah, I remember when Sports Story came out and there was a little Easter egg that basically had like a fake video game company in the back of one of the rooms and they were being overworked. So everyone read into that and was like, shit, were they crunching hard to get this game out? And sure enough, it got patched out a week later. So like,
Whoops. Mm,
yeah, maybe not whoops. Maybe that was supposed to be there, but not everyone agreed on that. But yeah, I like this type of content, but I think that's what is so different about, something like a video essay because Fun or Guru, I will watch that. I will watch stuff like that religiously. Like there's plenty of creators that I follow that are in that realm. Someone like a BBK Dragoon where all they do is play like movement shooters and I like just watching them talk and think about movement shooters and stuff like that. Matt McMuscles, their What Happened series. I will eat that series up all the time. But like I'm not gonna sit here and think about Matt McMuscles video for days after it's over. In the same way that like once a Jacob Geller video ends, that's just gonna stick in my head. Or once even something like a Mini Me video, where Mini Me, he's not like the most poetic writer or anything, but he's a good writer and he talks about games that no one else cares about. He had a
yeah.
Red Steel retrospective.
Oh, dude,
Who?
I played a lot of Red Steel growing up. Let me tell you.
What? Really?
Yeah, it's one
No
of those
way.
weird ones where like a friend of mine, like one of my best friends at the time, had Red Steel on the Wii, like just had it. So we would just play that game all the time because like you can do like verses or whatever.
Yeah, the dueling.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
we would just play that shit all the time. So Red Steel is one of those games that people are like, yeah, this random game. I'm like, no, I fuck with that game.
Yeah, and that's typically what Mini Me's content is. It's always a bunch of games where it's like, well, who the fuck remembers that? But there's always one person who's like, oh no, I like Driver 3. And he's that one weirdo who likes Driver 3. So yeah, it's that type of thing where it just leaves you something to think about. And the older I get, the more that I value any type of art, video essays, music, movies, games, whatever. After I'm not listening to it, is it gonna linger in the mind? I
Mm,
like stuff that lingers in the
I
mind a
agree.
lot. And, that's really the whole point of this type of content. It's really good for that.
Totally. And I feel like even as even though it manifests itself in a different way for me, that's why I've been enjoying like science videos because it just
Mm.
I found that when I watch something that like makes me think, right? And helps me learn something and understand something that I didn't understand before or just a glimpse into a thing I never knew much about, that feels rewarding, right? Like I leave that being like, huh, I'm glad I watched that. Like I know about this stuff now. Like
Mhm.
I subscribe to a channel that's like called like the Institute of Human Anatomy, and it's essentially like a lab, and they have a bunch of uh,
If I
uh
ever make a porn site, I'm calling it that.
hell yeah, dude, hell yeah. They have
The
what's
Institute of
it
Human
called?
Anatomy. That
Cadavers.
goes incredibly hard, but yes, as you said.
They have a bunch of cadavers, and so like they they will like this is how fucking I don't know, like how food works, right? And they'll pull out a stomach, a human stomach, and they'll just show you, right? I'm like, that's fucking
Wow.
cool that's on YouTube. Like I wouldn't have thought
It's
that.
very neat.
Like obviously there's like anatomy explainers on YouTube, but these motherfuckers got cadavers with an S, right? Like,
Mm.
and
I
it's
mean,
awesome.
that's under the guise of education, probably, but that's still like that's pretty neat. Just from a
It's super
strictly
neat.
scientifical point, it's like, huh, you could just find that out. The answer to every question truly is on the internet.
It's out there, man. Like, and you can just see it. Like that's information that you wouldn't normally like have access to that, right? Like to mess
Hmm.
around with a human cadaver, you have to be like way back when, like pre-internet. You just gotta be in that world, right? Like you gotta be in school for it or something like that. And here's just like videos about them, just like out and about.
Hmm.
And and that kind of content has I've seen how much more I enjoy it. And I still like will listen to silly content. I think like the
Oh,
most
me too. Yeah.
the most popcorn content that I consume, and I consume a decent amount of it, is sports related content, right? Like I listen to a ton of sports podcasts, and even video game podcasts for that matter, right? Like they're my leisure content, right? But the one thing I've found that I just get a lot less out of, and at a different point in my life was my favorite kind of content, is something like something like the Kind of Funny podcast, for example, right? Like that
Uh,
that used to be my favorite podcast, right? Like cuz it was just like
mm-hmm,
I'm with these people that I have a parasocial relationship with, and we're hanging out and I'm laughing and telling funny stories or whatever, and it's just a good time. I don't listen to that type of content as much anymore because
mm-hmm,
I'm more strict for time, and I'm like, I'm not getting a lot out of this, right? Like
mm-hmm.
it just feels like
It's
background
fun in the
noise.
moment, but then
Yeah.
it's gone afterwards.
And then it's gone afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that was an hour, right? Like, okay, cool. And it's not to say that it's bad content. It's just that at the stage that I'm at in my life, I like having some deeper stuff. So that same itch that video essays that scratch for you, for me, it's science videos and things of that ilk.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that. And I've kind of felt the same way. I will give a quick shout out since we're talking about video essays. The Blessing Show is good every single time. The Blessing Show is an excellent series. It is.
Absolutely,
I hesitate to say anything's perfect, but it's really fucking good, and everyone should check that
it's
out. And it's
incredible.
very accessible if
It's
you're. Yeah.
I said it on under every like under the last 2 or 3 episodes. I've said it and I've fully meant it. Like this is the best piece of content Kind of Funny has ever put out. And I'm not like
Hmm.
to say anything. I'm just like this is just so fucking good. Like so fucking good.
Absolutely, absolutely. The Black Hair episode, I was like,
Oh my
man,
god, the Black Hair
this
episode's
is incredible.
awesome. So good.
Yeah. That's my favorite episode of the whole series. But
I
yeah,
agree.
that series is great. But like, yeah, absolutely. This type of content is what I live for. Now let me ask this because we've been talking for a while. Are there any like big shout outs you want to give that we haven't already said to, types of channels that make this type of content or just like stuff that like sticks to the ribs as far as this type of stuff is concerned?
See, here's
Because
the
I got a
thing.
couple.
No, yeah, and I think I'm gonna let you take the
Oh,
floor. I want to see if there's anybody that I've missed because truly, obviously, you consume a lot more long form content than I do, right? So I'm
maybe
trying
too
to see.
much.
There's one. I mean, this does not apply, right? But it is a creator I want to shout out called Nerd Forge. It's one that I found,
Mm.
and they get a ton of
Yeah.
views, but they also have their own Patreon or whatever. And what it is, it's this woman from Norway, Norwegia. I was gonna say she's
Fair.
Norwegian, and she's like just like an incredible artist, like very very talented artist. And so she'll just make videos about the project she's working on. Like she'll build like cool fucking giant castles and shit, and like she'll make a
Oh
PC
shit.
be like a dragon, and just does. And I've never been somebody to consume like art content because I'm not like art like in the sense of just like making art, but
Yeah.
it's she's super interesting. Their videos are very fascinating, and it's just something that I marvel at, right? Because she'll be like, "Ugh, I've never done this kind of painting before, or I've never done this kind of drawing before. I'm sure I'm
And
gonna
just
suck
nail
at
it.
it." And she will pump out the most incredible thing I've ever seen. And she's like, I don't know, man. It's kind of rough around the edges. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? So Jimena and I actually like because I was watching it on my own, and Jimena one day was peeking by, and she saw that I was watching one of those videos, and now it's become like religion for the two of us. Anytime there's a new Nerd Forge video, be like, babe, there's a new Nerd Forge out there, and then we'll just like, yes, let's fucking sit down and watch it. So major shout out to
Hell
that
yeah.
because it's an it's an avenue that I like never have had much interest in, but for some reason those videos just hook me all the time.
Mm. Let me see. There's another person whose videos are very similar to this. Simon, fuck. There's a inventor girl. I forget her name.
Oh,
I
I
I
know
am
who
not
you're
gonna be able
talking
to
about.
shout her out. Yes, she had brain surgery like last year or
I know
something.
exactly. She's awesome. I know exactly who you're talking about. I forget her
Yeah,
name.
she's really cool. Like as someone who watched a lot of MythBusters,
She's
she
awesome.
absolutely has that vibe, but like in a way more chill manner. Um,
Totally agree.
God, what is her name? YouTuber brain surgery. I kind of want to type that in and see if she pops up. Um, because like not a lot of YouTubers have brain surgery and come back.
Yeah, no, not that many of them.
Is there not? I can't type in YouTuber brain surgery. I just get videos of brain surgery on YouTube. Oh, Simon Geertz.
Yes,
Yeah,
she's awesome, dude. She's fucking so cool.
yeah, she's really cool. Yeah, I've been subscribed to her for a while. She makes good content. She's very similar content where she just builds crazy mechanical things or does cool science tricks and whatnot. Yeah, she's really cool. But yeah, I respect that type of content. It's really, really good stuff. Let's see, what was I about to actually say? I got thrown off on that. That sent me on the
My
side.
bad.
Okay, so I'll shout out just a handful. It's fine. No, that's not. That's perfectly good. I got to shout out someone else that I wasn't even thinking of, so that worked. Also, breaking up again. So if I'm talking over you, I am apologizing now. But in any case, yeah, some people I want to shout out. Dead Domain is someone I found super recently. Dead Domain is basically just someone on the internet who seems like they made a lot of video game content originally, and then they started making political content, and now the political content is getting a lot more traction than the game content, but they're still bouncing back and forth. The series the first video I watched from them was basically them being like, hey, Quake 2, the remake of Quake 2 that came out, that's like the most important game of the year because of it being such a good archival piece for like preserving an old game in like the best way possible.
Yeah.
So I watched that video, and then I eventually saw that they had a series where they rank every single Xbox 360 shooter. And literally, you can't tell me there's a better piece of content that exists for me specifically.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh yeah, what do you think of Darkest of Days 2011? Tell me. And so I've been watching all that, and that's great. Grimbeard's another one where Grimbeard will review a lot of like either horror games or just violent action games or like edgy type games. He reviews a lot of that type of stuff, and his stuff is the closest thing to when you talk about like when G4 came back. And I was like, what are they going to do for G4? It has to be online, but what type of voices could they have that kind of remind me of like old school G4 a little bit? Grimbeard is absolutely that, where he has little bits in between his segments in his reviews. He's always putting jokes in, but they're not like cringy. And also it's sometimes a funny YouTube reviewer can come off as like, oh, this is just a vehicle for your jokes. You don't actually care about whatever you have to say. But no, these are like hour-long videos where he has very passionate things to say about these games. And then there's also bits and stuff thrown in between. And it's really good. He made a video about The Darkness recently, which is really good. And a video about Deus Ex Invisible War lately that's really his longest video to date. And I don't know why. I'm like halfway through it. So
I guess
it's
Deus Ex is
he's a
just
good
like
guy.
it presents itself for fucking long ass video essays because doesn't H Bomber guy have like a 3 hour Deus Ex video?
Yeah. A 3 hour video on what is it? Human Revolution.
Which is like
Deus
the
Ex
one
Human
nobody
Revolution.
liked.
Yeah. Well, that's the one that like people were middling on. The one nobody likes is Invisible War. And that one is like a 2.5 hour video.
Amazing.
It's crazy. So yeah, Grimbeard's great. What was the other guy I was gonna talk about? Thor High Heels, another great video essayist where he makes a lot of videos about aesthetics in video games. My favorite video from him is where he's talking about the PS360 aesthetic, or Mysterious PS3 Games is the name of the video, where it's just talking about like that low frame rate, high gloss, like, that's very specific look that every single PS3 and most 360 games had. It's just a weird nostalgic thing.
Yeah.
And he talks about it for an hour and a half, and it's great. And that's more or less. Oh, Vivian Strange is another one I wanted to give a shout out to because they are really good. They are like very, how do I say this? They believe in what they believe in to an incredibly strong degree, to the point that might push a lot of people away. But I respect their opinion so much that I'm like, man, you say it passionately, and I might pick and choose the parts that I agree with. But like overall, I think your arguments are really sound. They make a lot of media analysis stuff, and they put out a really good video a couple weeks ago about like how art shouldn't be comforting all the time. You should seek discomfort because that's how you grow as a person. So yeah, very good stuff there. And there's a million more I could talk about, but those are like the ones that are top of mind.
Yeah. I think
But
I
yeah,
think
I
that
watch a lot of that type of stuff.
I think one of the underlying themes is that we both enjoy listening to like smart people talk, right? Like that, like
Absolutely.
honestly, like it sounds so simple, but that's really it. Like I love listening to somebody who's really fucking smart on basically any topic. If you're really smart about it and you know a whole lot about that one topic, I'm fascinated, right? Like I'm in. That's one of the reasons why I've loved the Wen Show, the Linus Tech Tip podcast, because I consider both of them to be very very smart and not just in tech related stuff, in like a bunch of stuff. Like I'll learn the most random shit from the Wen Show because they're talking about like a super random thing that they're just pretty smart. They're pretty smart people, so they know a bunch of stuff. I'm like, whoa, and it leads me on my own little path of learning. So listening to smart
Bingo.
people who know what they're talking about is sick.
Yep. And literally, after we get off of here, Folding Ideas just put out a video. So I'm about to sit down for 2.5
Hell
hours.
yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Well,
This is financial advice. Let's do it.
let's do it. Well, people at home, let us know who are your favorite video essays slash long form people. What do you enjoy? What kind of content do you enjoy? I mean, if you're listening to the Spoonful podcast, we assume you enjoy us. Let us know. Curious
They
about
like
that
listening to
stuff.
smart people too.
Yeah, I don't know why they're here, man.
I was trying to blow us up, and now you've literally
I gotta
blown us
even
up.
it out. I gotta even it out. You know,
Fair enough. Yin
that's
and
how you
yang.
gotta
You're
do
right.
it.
You're right.
100%. That's what we're all about. Everybody, we'll see you on the next one. Take care.